England 2020 season review. I did one of these videos for the All Blacks. They ended up winning the Tri Nations. Had a bit of a mixed year, the All Blacks. England's year has been a bit more clear cut, I guess, at least in terms of the record. But I'll have a look at that. Some of the key stats about the games they played this year. And yeah, maybe some work ons for them and where we think they're going in 2021. Just looking at the record, man, it's pretty good reading compared to the All Blacks. I say compared to the All Blacks because, we, as in New Zealand, won the Tri Nations, England won the Six Nations and the Autumn Nations Cup. 8-1. They only lost their first game, which was the one against France, 24-17. Other than that, they went on an 8-game winning run, played a mixture of teams, Wales and Ireland a couple of times, Italy, Georgia, France again. Overall, I think you'd have to be pretty happy, at least just looking at the record. So, successful year for Eddie Jones. Gets to lift a couple of trophies, a bit more experience under some of the guys' belts. Interesting, one of the things that's been talked about a lot in 2020, especially with rugby up in the Northern Hemisphere, is the amount of kicking that's going on. And England are one of the teams that's kind of leading that current strategy at the forefront of it anyway. The average number of kicks per game for England was like 36 kicks, which is quite a few. Like, to put that into context, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. You can kick as much as you want depending on how you want to play the game. All Blacks the same year averaged like 22 kicks. So England kick a fair bit, man. And that game against France in the Autumn Nations Cup, which is a bit not really a fair one to look at because that game went more than 80 minutes, 48 kicks. So it would have been lower if it had just been at the end of the 80. Other games, 40, 34, 34, 44, 37. The least is 24, and then 32, 33. So, basically, when you see England play, they don't like to play with ball in hand. This is probably partially the way the game is reffed now, with it can be pretty hard to retain possession. You've got guys like Youngs, Farrell, Ford. These guys can largely put the ball where they want to, just outside the 22, 5 meters in from the touchline, and you've got guys who are going to chase that ball, pummel the recipients of those kicks into touch, or force a turnover, or compete with them for that high ball and at least make them knock it on. You saw them doing it to Lee Halfpenny multiple times. Either make them knock it on, make them uncomfortable. And you got Underhill and Curry, who will just turn over all day long. If they do manage to hold it, they run into Maro Itoje and he turns them over. So, kick the ball away, get turnovers and attack seems to be one of the ways it goes. And I looked at their games, like how many turnovers do they win per game? They average like 6.5 turnovers won per game, like pilfers, proper pilfers. And they always concede less. Like, there's a couple of exceptions where, like in that final Autumn Nations Cup, they won 4 and conceded 10. That was a game where the French defence really manned up. And their loss to the French at the start of the year, they had 6, France had 9. And in that game against Wales in the Autumn Nations Cup, that was 5-9 in Wales' favour. But every game in between, England dominate the turnovers. So there's 3 exceptions, like 6 where it goes their way. So it just seems to be a thing. 11-2, 8-3, 5-3, 7-5, 6-4. Generally, England likes to get more turnovers than the other team, and they set their team up that way. There's a reason you see Underhill and Curry, playing in that same lineup. Run meters, they average 300. They average 300 run meters a game. But again, for possession, they're quite happy playing without the ball. They average 48% possession. So, like, some of their wins, like when they beat Ireland in the Autumn Nations Cup, they had 32% possession. When they beat Wales in the Six Nations, they had 36% possession. When they beat Ireland in the Six Nations, 39% possession. When they beat Scotland in the Six Nations, 45% possession. They're quite happy to play without the ball. The teams that they usually get more ball against, it seems like Georgia, they had 60%. It was Italy, they had 54%. So, yeah, England quite happy to play without the ball. So they get fewer run meters. But it doesn't matter. The All Blacks get 455. England get 300. England's got a hell of a better win record this year than New Zealand. So kind of make of that what you will. What England are good at, especially again when you compare to New Zealand, which is the only other team I've looked at all the stats thus far. So that's why I can kind of do that one-to-one comparison. I'm not singling out New Zealand for any other reason. They're quite good at containing the opposition run meters, actually. England concede an average of 259. New Zealand concede an average of 384 run meters. So England are defensively a very solid outfit. That's also another thing that when you look at their stats, when you're looking at the good stuff, their defensive numbers are generally very good. One of the games where they tackled quite poorly, because their average is like 87% tackling percentage. It's pretty bloody high. Against France, that game they lost, it was 76. That's a bit of a blip. Then they go 91 against Scotland, 91 against Ireland, 88 against Wales. They slack off a bit when they play Italy, 79%. Remember, the game against Italy is after the lockdowns have kind of been released. The game against the Barbars got cancelled from memory, so maybe the guys are a bit rusty. But you can still tackle like that against Italy and get a 34-5 win because they are a class above where Italy are at. Georgia 89, Ireland 94, Wales 89, and then France in that final game of the Autumn Nations Cup, where you would argue England probably didn't meet expectations, even though they won it, 83%. So their worst performances are France at the start, France at the end, and then Italy kind of in the middle or the new start. Overall, though, when England are in the swing of things, they're quite happy to kick you the ball and just tackle the stuffing out of you and turn you over. And they can still rack up the run meters. Their defenders beaten and clean breaks numbers are pretty good, although lower than the All Blacks. Remember, the All Blacks play with a bit more possession. Clean breaks 12 or 13 per game. 6 per game. Defenders beaten is 13 per game. Clean breaks is 6. The All Blacks is like 24 and 11 for the same numbers. I would say half of these numbers are probably bloody Johnny May, to be fair. Their lineout operates really well. 95.8%, so 96% success rate. And in virtually every game, they dominate the opposition lineout. I don't mean to be going only good things, but England does a lot well, man. 83 was their worst lineout performance, and that was against Ireland in the Six Nations. When they played Scotland, they blitzed Scotland's lineout, which was operating at 57%. Ireland in the Autumn Nations Cup could only manage 76% against England, and Wales could only manage 73%. Admittedly, those sides have been having line-out troubles of their own, so that may be their own issues rather than England putting pressure on. Maybe it's a bit of both, but England, there's 4 games where their line-out operated at 100% out of all their games this season. So very effective. Number of tries scored, it kind of depends who they're playing. Italy and Georgia, 6 tries against Georgia, 5 tries against Italy. Wales and Ireland, 3 tries in the Six Nations, 2 in the Autumn Nations Cup. And the only time they were outscored by tries in this calendar year was the game they lost against France in that opener. France scored 3, England scored 2. Every other game they have either equaled or scored more tries than their opposition. So you can look at the run meters, you can look at the clean breaks, but they're still able to get more tries than their opposition without having to really be kind of that flashy with those numbers. If you're going to play a lower position game, you're going to have lower kind of offensive ball in hand stats. Penalties, they kick an average of 2.2 a game, which is one area they really dominate the All Blacks. Like they kick 2.2 penalties a game. New Zealand are at 1.2. Conceded penalties, like kicked penalties. This year, England are at 1.3. The All Blacks were at 2. So that's a key area of difference as well. They both concede about the same number of tries per game. One area that was maybe if you can kind of start getting into some of the bad stuff, and it's a similar issue with the All Blacks. England's goal kicking has not been all that reliable. Like there's a few games early on in the season. The first one in the loss, it's 100%. Then it drops to 50% for the game against Scotland. Then it's 100 and 100 in the next 2 Six Nations games. Lockdown and then resumption of play, 67% against Italy, up to 83% against Georgia, and then 75%, 63%, and 60%. I don't know, it's not maybe at a level I thought it might be. So overall, I guess like 77 is decent. I honestly thought it would be higher. The All Blacks are at 67, so even 10% worse. So the All Blacks are legit poor, whereas England's like okay. But I had it in my head that England were like kind of a very good goal kicking side, but someone mentioned in one of the comments that Farrell's goal kicking rate is regularly below some of the other guys in the England squad. So maybe it was Ford that's got a regular higher goal kicking rate than him. I'm not sure, but yeah, it was an interesting one. So yeah, I mean the run meter, as I said, it's a bit low, but it doesn't seem to matter because they always still manage to get more than their opponents. A few things, I guess, as I look into 2021, and it's something I connect maybe that's a little bit worrying. Like for the All Blacks season, which was much criticised with new coach, he did try out quite a few players. Old Ian Foster. He tried out quite a few players. Whereas when you look at that England side that played in the Autumn Nations Cup final, it's very familiar to the side that played at the Rugby World Cup. So that's maybe one area where it's a little bit like all the eggs are in one basket. I mean, I know there were some guys like Johnny Hill, Jack Willis, Ollie Lawrence, like all these guys got some minutes, especially towards the end of the season. I know Joe Marchant got some minutes as well. He's not got a whole lot of England caps. But I feel like if it's 2020, you're building to a World Cup, right? That's the whole point of the cycle. Maybe it could have used a bit more blooding of some younger guys. I know he's still very keen as to have like Billy V as his number one man in the number 8 jersey, but you got Don Brandt and you got Simmons who are kind of waiting in the wings. I know every coach has got their own policy. Some like rotation, some just stick to the kind of winning formula, but I just would have thought there's time to build some depth in some positions, and that doesn't quite seem to be happening at the moment. So, I mean, for me, that's leaning towards a bad thing about the 2020 season, as we didn't see maybe enough kind of experimentation and building. But maybe that's just not how he rolls. Maybe that's intentional. That's like a bug. No, it's not a bug. It's a feature, not a bug. That's a feature of his coaching style rather than a bug in his coaching style. So yeah, for 2021, I would like to see some more guys get a go. Like if Youngs goes down, who's the next guy to take over the number 9 jersey? Like, is there a guy who's got more than 20 caps who Eddie Jones would select? You guys in England will know better than me. I know Robson seemed to be the next kind of cab off the rank as well, but how many caps has he got? Less than 20, I'm sure. And he's like 28. I don't know. But, yeah. Anyway. Curry and Underhill, like I mentioned, they're awesome. Itoje is awesome. Johnny May can just score amazing tries from anywhere. Watson is phenomenal. Daly is consistent. He's got a big old boot on him. Yeah, there's lots to like about the England squad. And from what I've seen of the Premiership, there's lots of players who are on the outer with Eddie Jones for one reason or another who I would like to see get in the fold, but that's just one to see what happens for next year. But yeah, like I said, pretty successful year. They've got a very distinct way of attacking the game, and it is fun to watch. I know the bloody commentators seem to think that kicking is the bane of the sport, but when I see like Ford drop a ball just outside the 22, 5 meters from the touchline, I know some pain is coming the way of whoever just caught that ball, and they're under immense pressure. So it's kind of like things are about to get started. And he's got some guys in his team who are really good at that. He's got some guys who are absolutely going to monster the breakdown and see what they can do. But yeah, 8 wins and 1 loss. Good year. Blooded some guys, not enough for mine, but lifted 2 trophies. 1 win away from having a perfect season. So yeah, can't really complain too much. One of the best teams in the world. What can you say? Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. What do you think England is going to look like next year? Anybody else you would like to see in the conversation for that England team? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.